Good morning and namaste to all of you. Let's start our Sunday Gita class with some Gita Dhyanam mantras. Om Parthaye Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayan Swayam Vyasen Gratitam Puran Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritvarshinim Bhagavati Mashtadashadhyayane Ambutvam Anusandhame Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshini नमोस्तु ते व्यास विशाल बुद्धे फूल अरविंद आयत पत्र नेत्र येन तव्या भारतल पूर्णः प्रज्वलितो ज्ञान में प्रदीपः प्रपन्न पारिजाताये तोत्र वेत्र एकपाने ज्ञान मुद्राये कृष्णाये गीता अमृत दुहे नमः सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपाल नंदना पार्थो वत्सा सुधीर भोगता दुग्धम गीता अमृतम महत वसुदेव वसुतम देवम कंस चानूर मर्दनम देवकी परमानंदम कृष्णम वंदे जगद्गुरुम भीष्म द्रोण तटा जयद्रथ जला गांधार नीलोत्पला शल्य ग्राहवती कृपेन वाहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थाम विकर्ण घोर मकरा दुर्योधन अवर्तनी सो तीर्ना खलु पांडवई रन नदी के वर्तका केशवा पाराशरे वत्सरो जमलम गीता अर्थ गंधोटकम नाना ज्ञान केसरम हरि कथा संबोधन अबोधितम लोके सज्जन षटपदय रह रह पेपिये मानम मुदा भूयाद भारत पंकजम कलिमल प्रध्वंसी न श्रेयसे मूकम करोति वाचालम पंगुम लंघ्यते गिरिम यत् कृपातमं वंदे परमानंद माधवम यम ब्रह्म वरुण इंद्र रुद्र मरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्ये स्तवे वेदै सांग पद क्रमोपनिषदै गायन्ति यम सामगा ज्ञानवस्थे तद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यम योगिनो यस्यन्तं न विदु सुर असुर गना देवाये तस्मै नमः. We are starting a new chapter today, chapter number 17, Shraddha, Traya, Vibhaga, Yoga. So that is the title of the chapter. We saw in the last chapter, especially in the last two verses of that chapter, the idea was introduced that we should study the scriptures. Scriptures give us the knowledge and the path, how to walk on this. But it is very difficult for the average person to develop that amount of proficiency in the scriptural codes. We see that Arjuna wants to act upon the philosophy of Lord Krishna. That's why he's asking all these questions. But he finds it hard because of his insistence upon the knowledge of the scriptures. But he knows that he has a Shraddha though. He is confident about that. He has developed in himself a sufficient Shraddha, which is faith, in the nobler way of life. So that's why this chapter opens with this doubt. Is it sufficient if one lives with faith, a life of good conduct and noble aspiration, or is it necessary that he must know the Shastra also? Should he be obedient to the injunctions laid down in the Shastras, in the scriptures? Earlier also in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse number 39, chapter 16, verse number 23, the Shraddha or the faith has been described as the fuel required for the seeker to soar higher. Shraddha. The emphasis and importance given to the faculty of Shraddha are almost equal to those given to the Shastras. So that's why Arjun has every right to raise the question whether even without the knowledge of the scriptures, blind faith alone can take the seeker far. The capacity in the human intellect not only to know and appreciate the scriptures, but also to absorb and assimilate the noble ideals is called Shraddha. Shraddha is that powerful impelling force which springs forth spontaneously from within. Shraddha is the content and the very essence of the equipments of a person's whole being. Shraddha is the one which gives us the direction and dash and the destination for our determination. Shraddha. We'll see that Arjun in the very first verse asking the question, and then Lord Krishna, instead of directly answering the question, he takes this opportunity to give a thorough exposition of a faith. He talks about the physical indulgence, which is ahar, dedicated activities, which is called yajna, tap, austerity, dan, charity. Because the nature of their faith determines the quality of a person's life. We all prefer the food we eat according to the faith. So faith is in each and every part of our actions. So Lord Krishna first of all explains that Shraddha is three kinds, according to the nature of the gunas. The three classifications under which the temperaments fall are balanced joy, which is sattvic, ambitious and feverish activities, which is rajasic, and a carelessness, almost like a vegetative existence, that is tamasic. And under the influence of these three guns, in varying proportions, we come to live the religious values, strive for our spiritual unfoldment also in our life. So this chapter we got to study very closely so that we can understand how the faith and how the gunas, they affect our life. Remember, nobody is devoid of faith. Nobody. Because it is an inseparable aspect of human nature. But depending upon the nature of our mind, we take the corresponding action. Sattvic, Rajasic, or Tamasic. So let's see how Lord Krishna answers this. But first verse, where Arjun is asking the question, which I just mentioned it to you. So Arjun says, Ye Shastra Vidhim Utsrijya Yajante Shraddhe Anvitaha Tesham Nishtha Tuka Krishna Sattvam Aho Rajatama. Ye means who? Shastra Vidhim, the ordinance of the scriptures. Utsrijya, setting aside. Yajante, perform sacrifice. Yajna. Shraddha Anukaha, endowed with faith. Tesham, their nishtha, condition. Tu means verily, ka means what? Because he's asking a question. Ka. Krishna, Sattvam Sattva, Aho, is it Raja, Rajasic, Tama, Tamasic? Those who, setting aside the ordinances of the scriptures, perform sacrifice with faith. What is their condition, O Krishna? Is it a sattva, rajas, or tamas? Setting aside the ordinance of the scriptures, because the scriptural texts are not generally available for all people. And even when they are made available, very few will have the intellectual capacity to understand them. That's why Arjuna is asking this question. There's always the excitement of life's activities around. And in that excitement, sometimes there could be confusions and the anxieties within. Even though the answers are given in the scriptures, because scriptures are called the blueprints of our life. But a sincere seeker might have a great faith in the higher way of life and a deep devotion to the ideal preached. That's why Arjuna is asking this question. Perform actions, yajante. All actions done by an individual during his life in a spirit of selfless dedication generally come in this word when we say yajante. Can a person who's striving hard in the world in a spirit of detachment and selflessness hope to avoid agitations? What would be his condition? Nishtha. Arjuna wants to know. Is it sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic? What is the nature of that faith? What is the nature of that faith for a person who's worshipping without reference to the Vedic scriptures? As I said earlier, nobody can be without faith. It is an inseparable aspect of a human personality. People who do not believe in the scriptures are not without faith either, but their faith is on something else. We can see it very logically that a person says, unless I see it, unless I touch it, unless I can hear it, I don't believe it. So faith is there, but the faith for that person is in the sense organs. Faith is there. So the perceptions of their senses, they say it's more important. Or another statements we often hear that I don't believe in God because I cannot see him. So they do not have a faith in God, but they have faith in their eyes. So they assume that if their eyes cannot see something, it probably does not exist. So that's kind of a faith. Other people say, I do not believe in the authenticity of the ancient scriptures. Instead, I accept the theories of the modern science. So faith in the modern science, but not faith in the scriptures. So that's kind of a faith, which we see in the last few centuries, how theories and science keep getting amended and overthrown. So Arjuna desires to know how important it is to study the scriptures. So answer of Lord Krishna is very exhaustive over here and comprehensive, as we have seen in the earlier questions also. Even though Arjuna asked only a few questions, but the answers are given in detail. So Lord Krishna will tell us that there are three types of faiths playing in all the channels of human endeavors. That means all our actions which we are doing. So let's look at verse number 2. Lord Krishna says, Trividha bhavati Shraddha dehi naam sa swabhavaja satvaki rajasi cha eva tamasi cha iti tam shrinu. Trividha, threefold. Bhavati is Shraddha, faith. Dehi naam, of the embodied. Sa swabhavaja, in their inherent nature. Swabhav. Satviki, pure. Rajasi, passionate. Cha means and, Ev means even. Tamasi, dark. Cha means and, iti, thus. Tam, of it. Shrinu, here. Threefold is the faith of the embodied, which is inherent in their nature. The sattvic, pure, rajasic, passionate, and the tamasic. Hear of it. So that means pay attention to me, even though Arjuna is listening. But Lord Krishna says this is something very important. Pay attention to it, what I'm going to tell you. So Lord Krishna says that faith itself is of three kinds. You can call it a divine, undivine, and diabolic, if you want to. Shraddha determines the textures of our impressions in us. Because those impressions in us, the sanskars, they in turn command our new way of life. So our sanskars also are three kinds. Our desires, thoughts, actions, they are charted by our view of life. Naturally, our physical activities, our psychological behavior, or even our intellectual makeup is all ordered by the type of Shraddha. And if the Shraddha is of the wrong type, the entire expression of our personality in all walks of life and every field of endeavor can only be ugly. As his inner disposition, so is the man. So that means the temperaments rule the behavior of the humans are three in number. That's what he's telling us, three vidha. Satvik, Rajasic, and Tamasic. Verse number 3. Sattva anurupaha sarvasya Shraddha bhavati bharat Shraddha meya ayam purishaha yad Shraddha sa eva sa. Sattva anurupaha, in accordance with his nature, Sattva anurupa. Sarvasya, of each. Shraddha, faith. Bhavati is Bharat, that is for Arjuna. Shraddha Maya consists of his faith. I am this Purush, a person. Ya means who? Yadrichaha, that faith is. That means his faith is the person's faith. Sa means he, Ev means verily, Sa means that. The faith of each is in accordance with his nature. Okay. Sat Anurupa. So the faith of each is in accordance with his nature, and it's almost like a nature of his Antakaran, the mind. O Bharat, the man consists of his faith. As a man's faith is, so is he. So when we decide to place our faith and what we choose to believe in, practically shape the direction of our life. Those who develop the conviction that money is of paramount importance in the world, their entire life is surrounding the money. And those people who believe that fame counts more than anything else, their time and energy is chasing political posts or social designations. Those who believe in noble values, they will sacrifice everything. So according to one's own nature. So the type of a faith that feeds and nourishes each person is, we notice, vastly different from one another. And the more we observe the differences, the more we are led to inquire, why is it so? So this is what Lord Krishna is explaining, that faith in each heart is ordered by its own nature. And remember that nature we have cultivated. And nature is the nature of our subtle body, or the physical body, or our causal body. It is very difficult to say whether faith orders the nature or the nature prescribes the faith. They are so much connected with each other. So all you can say is each is wedded intimately to the other. So which one comes first, nature or the faith? But Bhagavad Gita declares that it is the nature in an individual that rules his faith, the nature, Swabhava. Although if a faith can be broken and remolded, it can be sometimes at the compulsion of the painful experiences, the nature of that one does faithfully obey the new Shraddha. Okay, so that's why they say that sometimes a person has to go through some very difficult time to really remold its nature. But generally speaking, the faith in each person takes the quality of the stuff of his being. So the predominating temperament in a person. The essence of a faith lies in the secret energy of the ego, actually. Because with the ego, we hold fast our convictions. And we reach a definite, chosen, and by some well thought out, self-planned means also. So we all potentially determine our faith in a given end. And then this faith reacts upon this potentiality, determining the future course. So they both react on each other. So Shraddha in the individual, that means a person exists in this Shraddha. Each devotee ultimately reaches the seat of his devotion if he consistently and with sufficient intensity devotes himself to its attainment. So as a man's faith, so is he. The type of personality and its effectiveness or otherwise are all determined by the faith under which it functions. Achievement of life is ever colored by the type of the faith. So sattvic faith will take us towards the sattvic course. Rajasic faith will take us towards the Rajasic course. And the same way the Tamasic. Yajante satvika devan, yaksh rakshansi rajasa, pretan bhut ganan cha anya, yajante tam sajana. Yajante, worship. Satvika, the sattvic person, devan, gods. Yaksh rakshansi, yaksh and the rakshasa. Rajasa, the passionate. Pretan, the ghosts. Bhut ganan, the nature of spirits. Cha means and, anya means others. Yajante, worship. Tamsa, the tamsic, jana, people. So Lord Krishna is saying the Sattvic or the pure people worship the gods, the Devatas, the divine beings. The Rajasic or the passionate, the Yaksh and the Rakshas. The others, the Tamasic people, worship the ghosts and the hosts of bhoots or the nature spirits. So let's look at the Sattvic first. Sattvic person worships Devatas. And worship need not indicate only the ritualistic worship of the god or the deity. The term worship here can also mean that what do we choose in life? Even the atheists, they are worshippers too. So whatever we love, whatever we are drawn towards, whatever we keep on thinking about. So a Sattvic person with a Sattvic temperament, because a Sattvic person we learned has a very serene composure, a tranquil disposition. That kind of a personality is seeking the fulfillment and an altar of divinity. That means higher impulses, nobler qualities. And naturally they seek and come to adore the Devatas. Okay, because of their own inner nature, they are drawn towards the purity. That's what Devata is. Okay, so Sattvic people worship Devatas. And Yaksha and Rakshas by the Rajasic. Extreme ambition, constantly restlessness in their self-chosen fields of activity. That's a Rajasic nature. And they are said to be worshipping Yaksha and Rakshasa. It is interesting to note that the Yaksh are described as the brothers of Kuber. Kuber is in charge of the finance in the divine realm. So that means the wealth, that is their ambition, the worldly, the wealth, the material wealth. And the Rakshas are beings of strength and power. So all men of action, ambitions of success and achievement would seek the friendship of only rich men and men of power of strength. That's what it means. So in their mind, constantly, these thoughts are gurgling that we got to have more. We got to be in the company of somebody with a higher authority. Maybe we can get something from them. That's what worship means. So don't think worship is just taking that thali, arti thali, and doing the worship. So what is in your mind? With whom you like to be? With the divine beings or with the materially or physically successful people? That's worship. And the Tamasic people worship the Pret and the Bhoots, the dead spirits, low vicious powers, black magic, so that we can attain some powers. And not only we become successful, but we can hurt others also. That's what Tamsikta is. The low urges for vicious sense gratification. So from the nature of a person's field of activity, we can, to a large extent, understand to what type a person belongs, predominantly. Now he is talking about the scriptures also. Because he did mention scriptures are very important. So he says, Ashastra vihitam goram, tapyante ye tapajana, damb ahankar sanyuktaha, kam rag balanvataha. Ashastra vihitam, not enjoined by the scriptures. So that means did not study the scriptures, don't even know what is in the scriptures. Ghoram, swear. Tapyante, practice. Ye means who? Tapaha, austerity. Jana, people. Dambh, ahankar, sanyuktaha, given to hypocrisy and egoism. Dambh and ahankar. Ahankar is egoism, dambh is hypocrisy. Kam, rag, balanvitaha, by the force. See, bal means the force. By the force of kam and rag, lust and attachment. Those people who practice severe austerities, not enjoined by the scriptures, given to hypocrisy and egoism, impelled by the force of lust and attachment. So in the name of spirituality, people perform senseless austerities. Because scriptures never talk about senseless austerities. For example, people lie on the bed of thorns also, they think they are pleasing the God. Keep on one hand raised for years. Some will gaze constantly at the sun. So they will unmindful of the harm it does to their eyes or other parts. Lord Krishna says, this is all tamsik. Karshayantaha Shri Rasye Bhut Gramam Achetsaha Mam Cha Ev Anta Sharirastam Tan Vidhi Asur Nishchayan. Karshayantaha, torturing. Shri Rasye, in the body. Bhut Gramam, all the elements. Achetsaha, senseless. Mam means me, Cha means and, Ev means even. Antaha, within, like innermost, antaha, sharirastham, who dwells in the body. So who dwells in the body within, antaha sharirastham. Tan means them, vidhi no, asur nishchayan, to be of the demonic resolve. Senselessly torturing all the elements in the body, and me also, who dwells within the body. So Lord Krishna says, I dwell in the body. And by torturing, you are torturing me too. Know that these to be of a demonic resolve. That's tamsik. Over enthusiasm can produce only a physical exhaustion. It could be inward fatigue also. Scriptures, that's why we need to study the scriptures. Because faith is visible even in these people also. Faith is there, that's why they can do all those severe austerities. But it is bereft of proper basis of knowledge. Their faith is in the mode of ignorance. That's why he said, Asur Nishchayana. Those who abuse and torture their own physical body disrespect the Supreme Soul who resides within. All these are contrary to the recommended path of the scriptures. So that's why it's very important to study the scriptures, what to do, what not to do. All these injunctions are laid down over there in the scriptures. The majority of seekers misapply their energies and they come to suffer. That's why Lord Krishna is very openly, very clearly pointing it out. The picture of a false seeker, and he's almost ridiculing his unintelligent methods. Because when he says, Karshyanta Shri Rasya, or Asur, those are the terms he's using, very strong words. It's not proper or correct to believe that any kind of self-denial will constitute any austerity. All our tapasyas, all our yajnas, they should be scientific, not against the injunctions laid down in the sacred books. That's what we are discussing here. Some people generally undertake severe austerities only as a show. That's a rajasik, given to ostentation and egoism. Dambh ahankar sanyukta. That is not a proper austerity. They remain mentally unfit for tap. Because he says, Kam Rag Balavanta, lusty and extremely attached to the world of the objects around. That means doing the tap to gain something in the world. So such individuals cannot practice austerities properly. And even when they do practice the austerities, develop some inward dynamism as a result of their tap, because their intentions are gross, they will only misuse the newfound strength. And we read about it in the Purans and our other scriptures. How after gaining some strength, how they became the cause of the destruction in the outer world also. But when he says, me dwelling in the body, because such unintelligent austerities not only oppress the elements, like all these bhuts, or these elements which, these elements are the one which have created this body. So this physical frame also we destroy, but also the sacred and the divine Lord within. We heard that also. So life cannot express its beautiful beauty through such a broken form. Extreme tap is stupid. It's condemned here by Lord Krishna. Intelligent control is tap, not a cruel self-torture. Now to answer Arjun's question, he is going to tell us in the future verses how the food, the worship, the austerity, and the charity, how all of them can be three kinds, sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. But first he's just telling us what he's going to talk about. He says, ahara tu api sarvasya trividha bhavati priya yagya tapaha tatha danam tesham bhedam imam shrunu. Ahar, food. Tu means indeed, api also, sarvasya all, trividha, threefold. Bhavati is priya, dear. Yagya, sacrifice. Tap, austerity. Tatha means also, danam, charity, almsgiving. Tesham, there. Bhedam, distinction. Imam, this. Shrinu, here. So the food also which is dear to each is threefold. As also the sacrifice, austerity, and almsgiving. Here, the distinction of these from me. We all know mind and body impact each other. So the food we eat influences the nature of the food influences the nature of our mind, and vice versa too. So Lord Krishna in this verse introducing the theme that is to follow in several verses after this. So he is enumerating the topics that he is going to discuss. The temperament influences that govern the mind and its thought life express themselves in all departments of our activities. This is all of us do this. We all eat food. We all do the yajnas also. We all give the charity. We do the austerity in our own way. So that's why he is going to elaborate on all of these for us. So yajna, tap, dan, and ahar. So in the choice of food, in the type of sacrifices which we feel inspired to make, in the texture of our self-denials, and the quality and quantity of our charity also, he will tell us that which one is sattvic, the definition of a rajasic, and the tamasic also. These verses are not to be misconstrued as a ready reckoner to classify others. This is for our own. If you want to learn from it, because this is a Shastra. Bhagavad Gita is a Shastra. So from this Shastra, we are learning how to engage these activities for ourselves, not to tell others that they are tamasic kind or rajasic kind. Hinduism is a subjective science for bringing about a fuller unfoldment of our dormant personalities. That's why we are studying this. So each one of us need to purify ourselves. We got to keep on eliminating the tamsikta. Reduce the rajasikta also and increase the sattvikta. That's why we need this detail. Because agitation of the rajas keeps us away from that creative alertness or even the spiritual glow. So that's why Rajsikta has to be reduced also. So Tamsikta, don't even go near it, but keep on increasing the Sattvikta more and more. So we find the series of symptoms because we understand everything through the symptoms. So that's why Lord Krishna is going to explain it through the symptoms. See, any disease we have, when we go to the doctor, they ask us, what are the symptoms? So the same thing Lord Krishna is following over here, because we understand through the symptoms and how correctly we can classify ourselves. So let's look at verse number 8, and we'll stop the class over here and go through it. I just want you to get the feeling of it, how he's going to explain. And then I go through the rest of this next week. Ayu Sattva Bal Arogya Sukha Priti Vivardhana Rasya Sanigdha Stira Hrida Ahara Satvik Priya. So this verse number 8 is talking about the sattvic food. Sattvic Swabhav will like sattvic food. And a person who eats sattvic food will ultimately have a sattvic Swabhav also. Ayu means life. Sattva means purity. Bal is the strength. Arogya means health. See, rog means disease. Arog means health. Sukh is the joy. Priti is cheerfulness. Vivardhana means that which increase. So this whole line means those which increase life, purity, strength, health, joy, cheerfulness. Rasya, savory or juicy. Ras. Sanigdaha, smooth. Sthiraha, substantial. Ridha, agreeable or nutritious. Ahara, the foods, satvik priya, are dear to the satvik. The foods which increase life, purity, strength, health, joy, and cheerfulness, which are savory, smooth, substantial, and agreeable, are dear to the sattvic. So this is how he's going to explain all of this to us. So we'll see the next verse the Rajasic food, then the Tamasic food. So each verse is devoted to just one kind of this ahar, yagya, tap, and dan. So don't get confused. There's a lot of detail over here, but this particular verse, that's where we'll start next week also. But look at it. The kind of explanation he's giving it to Arjun's one question. Just going into the details, and we'll get a lot of knowledge from it. That's why these last 6 chapters are basically knowledge, pertaining to the knowledge part, okay, in detail. So let's stop the class here. We'll start with this verse number 8 next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.